you're asking whether fundamentally having an investigation into possible market distorting subsidies on electric vehicles produced in China, which would make them artificially cheap, and could lead therefore to measures to counter that, would in effect hamper our effort to develop the sale and use of electric vehicles in Europe. So I think that was the gist of your question. Now, this is a very broad question, obviously, but the simple answer I would give is that we believe that there is a market, obviously, for electric vehicles. In Europe, the Commission actually has put in place a regulatory framework for vehicles that will no longer emit CO2 with a target date of 2035 for the sale of new cars. And therefore, the whole automotive value chain in Europe has now the regulatory certainty in order to make the necessary investments to develop their capacity to answer the demand from the market. And so the first answer to how do you square the circle is by saying, by making sure that there is the proper incentives for European industry, let's put it differently, industry that is producing in Europe to make the necessary investments. And actually, part of that is to make sure that the market functions effectively. And that is precisely why you need to ensure that you do not have cars that are manufactured elsewhere that would come and distort the market through subsidies that are not warranted. Therefore, for us, there is no contradiction. There is actually a complementarity because you need to distinguish between short-term and medium-term effects in terms of price. It may be all very well and good if you've got very cheap cars coming in at an early stage and that wipe out the competition from Europe. But if there is then no longer any competition from Europe, what stops other producers from then increasing their prices? Just to give you a sort of example of the sort of thinking that you need to have when you are thinking about the long-term effects of policies. That's not all what I said. It's not about giving time to one segment of the industry compared to the other. It was about making sure that there was a regulatory framework that fosters investment. And secondly, that we have a market that functions appropriately. So this is not about putting in place any sort of barrier that would impede vehicles that are produced on market-based criteria to be sold in Europe. This is to make sure that cars that come to Europe do respect the rules of our market, be they cars manufactured in Europe, be they cars manufactured outside of Europe. I'm looking at my colleagues to see whether they want to add anything. No, it seems to be okay.